Hash House and Circle Up.
Welcome to On, the Hash House Harrier podcast for interviews, history, and stories. I'm your host, Ra.
Today, we are back in Pennsylvania with the longtime hashers, hashed around the world, done some very interesting runs, organized a lot of things in 4 digits of hash trails. So lots of hashing experience. Welcome today on the podcast, Bushrat. Good morning. Let's tell everybody your hashing origin story. When, where, and how did you get to your first hash?
My very first hash was in Okinawa, Japan. And there were 2 hashes active at the time over there. I was stationed with the base safety unit at Camp Foster. I was in the Marine Corps. A sister organization, which was the motor transport segment there, they had a hash going, was set up by Grease Monkey. And his motor transport maintenance chief, Yupper, were the 2 that really ran it. They would do hashes on Friday afternoons for anybody that they had in the motor transport unit that wasn't on the road. So if you weren't out driving, you were taken by bus to some remote place on the island. They were always ABs. So you pretty much had to run the trail or you were not going to get a ride home.
How did you get to your first one?
I was there for several months and I really wasn't into running. I've never been big on running, though I've had the ability to run. I got an invitation from one of the staff sergeants that I worked with, and he had heard about it and he said, let's go try this out. We showed up, got on the bus and get a run, and I was captivated by day one.
When was that?
1989, March, April timeframe of 89. Yeah.
What captivated you? What was it like in 1989 on your first trail? Did you know other people on the bus? And what was the whole experience like on day one?
The only person I knew on the bus was the person that I went with. He basically didn't do a whole lot of running with the hash after that. I was more captivated by it than what he was. He was a very type A runner from California.
That says a lot right there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he was a really good runner. He really mentored me a lot in my own running getting started because it basically got me interested in doing more running. But we hashed with the motor transport, motor T hash for a while. He had told me that there was a mother hash or the main hash on Okinawa. And I was like, I don't know. This is fun to me. This is okay. I don't know what the feeling was, but I wasn't all that interested in getting out and running. The motor transport maintenance chief, his name was Yupper. And him and I would go on to hare several hundred times together over the next several years. He got me to come out and do the big hash.
What was the difference between the 2 clubs? How they hashed?
The motor transport hash it was run the same way, live trails, but we're not doing the alcohol. Yeah, because we were in military vehicles and stuff going out. So they had drinks on trail for hydration, but other than that, it was all the same. And
Circles, singing?
yep, had the circle. They only had 1 hash song. That was it. So pretty much Okinawa wasn't into a whole lot of hash songs at that time either. It's usually just 1 down song. The difference was it was more about the physical training, but having fun doing it and encourage more people to get out and do it. And we do it, and it'd be hard, normally 6 miles, running through the jungle, just tons and tons of shiggy. Hashing on Okinawa was like the best I've ever done. It's just the layout of the land, but decided to do the big hash, and it was different. The way they did the circle, you had a lot of Okinawans, so there was a difference in that aspect of it.
Oh, you said the way they did the circle. How was their circle different? Alcohol changes everything.
That's a big part of it. And there's always lots of new people.
Right.
So getting people into the circle and finding out things about them. One thing they always did was if they had 4, 5, 6 people that showed up, they would give them a one-time name for that day. And normally had something to do with what went on that hash, where it was at or something like that. This will give you an example. I set up 2 hashes when I was with the 24th Mu in the Med in 93. We stopped in Rhodes, Greece. We also stopped in Israel. In Rhodes, Greece, we named the people Rhodes Goat, which had to do with the climbing and everything that we had to do, and there's lots of goats. So we named them Rhodes Goats. Then in Haifa, it's a big mountain in Haifa, and we named them the Mount Haifa Climbers. So we would have one-time names, and that's what they did in Okinawa, and we continue to do that in another hash that I helped get going later on.
Okay, apart from the terrain, jungle, and hills, was there stuff that tried to kill you on Okinawa?
These things won't kill you, but lots of banana spiders. They are huge. Yupper and I were doing a trail one time that went down behind what was known as the Love Hotels. And every time we went through, and him and I would rehearse trails a lot. We always rehearsed our trails because everything was live, lots of shortcutters. We'd have to really have our act together. So we would go out and we would cut trails through the Shiggy. And this one area that we're going down through, it just had hundreds of spiders. We actually would go down through with cans of spray, running through, just trying to keep them down from it because they made these huge webs. And as you're running, you would just get facefuls of webs. So we tried to keep them down the best that we could, and it had no effect. The other thing was they have a deadly snake over there called an habu. I never seen one alive in the Shiggy, but there was one day I was herring a trail that went up toward the Sheraton. There was a dead one, and it was a nice place to lay a false. So I put a false right around the habu.
Nice. What about the locals? Who were the long-term Okinawans who weren't coming and going that stayed there forever?
The one that I knew the best, and the only one I really ever got to know, and he hashed a lot in the U.S., was Omakase. And great guy, awesome runner. He would come to the Motor T hashes, and he was a joint hash master. Over there, they call him hash master, not grandmaster. He was the Okinawan hash master while I was there. Very popular guy. And he had his wife, I can't remember what her hash name was, but I've run into them a few times at inner hashes in the U.S. since leaving there in 89.
How'd you get your hash name?
Partly from the hat. Actually, it was my second hash name. Motor T gave me a hash name, which was Sasquatch. And it just had to do with how I ran through the jungle over there and up the hills and everything. But when I got to the big hash, it's boring. They took my last name being Roden, and they took the bush hat, and they came up with Bushrat. So that's a dull story, but that's how I got it.
What records did they keep at both of those hashes? Did they have hash trashers? Were people taking photographs in the late 80s? What was all that with the record keeping and T-shirts and all the stuff that goes around?
Lots of T-shirts. They had T-shirts for not just regular hashes, but my very first T-shirt was one that they used to go to an island off of Okinawa when they did a Memorial Day trail. July 4th, they would do a shirt. As far as the records, they had a hash trash. I kept a couple of them. I've still got them, but they would go over the trail itself. Anything that happened on the trail. If they had a big pack, they would have sometimes 3 people riding. So it was view from the middle and view from the rear. So they would incorporate all that into it. And then it would have downs that happened. The one I have here was from run number 676, 15 July, 1989. And who wrote that particular one. And they would recognize any milestones. The one thing they did there, you can see I have a headband right here. And when you got your name, they gave you a headband. It had no number on it. There's a plain white headband that just said Hash House Harrier. And then at increments of 25, 50, 75, 100 on up, you got another headband with that number on it. When they did downs, if you were a senior hasher to the person that is getting downs, you could pour on that person. You'd be on your knees, and the senior hashers would just come over and they would just start pouring beer, Hawaiian punch, whatever they had, they would pour that on the person. And then at the end, the last person to get the down usually got a cooler of ice water. And
Jeez.
ice and water. Yeah, it was pretty cool. If people that were junior could not do the pouring on that particular person, but every once in a while they would call an open season. And that means anybody could join in the fun. And normally that would happen for people getting their name, hares that were caught, or somebody getting the hash hit, that kind of stuff. Stupidity.
That's great. Okay. I wanted to ask you about how did you pick which headband you ran in each week once you get a whole bunch of these?
You ran in your most senior headband. Once you got your 50, you wore your 50 and on up. You would, headband checked. So you had to have your headband and you had to have your whistle. Those were offenses if you didn't have them.
So was it whistling rather than calling, or whistling just among the on calls?
Pretty much whistling, and they had it down pretty much as a code. Just a long whistle was a check, but just a short beat, just a blow on the whistle, that showed that you were on trail and you could keep track of the pack that way. And it really worked, really helped. We set trails over there where the finish was normally very close to the proximity of the start, but not always at the start. Hares couldn't get away with that. When you have a pack of 100, 150, you had to find a remote park to go to. And everybody over there, it's not a huge island, knows everything over there. You had to be pretty tricky with it. But yeah, the whistles were very effective so that people running behind, I can remember running through a valley one time and I looked up and I could see the pack was way over there and I could hear them. The whistle drew my attention and I was able to get across there. There's other times I'm in the front of the pack blowing my whistle and people that I'd passed miles ago, all of a sudden they're right there with me. Again, because we had the whistles and they could shortcut to the whistles.
How many years were you there?
I was only there 1 year. I was on a 1-year company tour. So I didn't get to hash with Okinawa a whole lot. I probably did maybe about 40 trails altogether.
You haired there. How long did it take you to set a trail?
Oh, gosh. I bet I set the first trail right after I got my name. They wouldn't let you hair until you were named. So it was shortly after I got my name. And so just a couple of weeks.
You didn't take a mismanagement position because you were only there a year.
Right. Yeah. I had no mismanagement positions in Okinawa.
Did you guys hash anywhere else before you left? Did you go on any away trips? And what did you know about hashing around the world?
I knew nothing. There was no internet or anything. I knew nothing. In fact, it wasn't until I was back in the States and I helped start another hash at Camp Lejeune. We started hearing little bits and pieces about some other trails, other hashes. Again, still no internet, no way of really verifying anything. But it wasn't until I was home and I started hashing a little bit with Carolina Trash. That opened my eyes to the world of hashing. Way different experience there than what we were doing over on the coast.
When you left Okinawa, the next place you went was Lejeune.
Correct.
You got a hash started there. How long did that take? And did you find hashers?
Oh, there's a bunch of Okinawa hashers that had all gone back to Camp Lejeune around the same time. Yupper was one of them. We heard through the public affairs office, and she was a hasher in Okinawa. Her hash name was Public Affair. We heard that there was going to be a hash, and so Yupper and I showed up, and the rest of it's history. From then on, him and I pretty much took it over. I think we haired probably 20 of the first 25 hashes. I think we went on to hair, we haired close to 200 trails together.
Basically, was it a clone of the main hash in Okinawa? Headbands, all those things?
Headbands. In fact, this particular headband was from there. I still have my Okinawa headband in a box. I didn't get to the 25 headband in Okinawa, though I tried. But between the Okinawa and the Motor T hash, I think I had just over 40 trails.
How long did Lejeune run? Were you there, and was that hash running?
I got there in fall of 89, and it picked up pretty quick. We had a lot of Okinawa hashers that had come back, and we were doing really well. We were doing trails on Sundays and on Wednesdays. So we were doing 2 a week. The weekly trail was more adult. And the Sunday trail had a family component to it. So we would always do a family trail on that one as well. Had it going really strong all the way up through when I left there in 94.
At that point, did you have walkers on trail?
We had walkers. Some of the wives would come out with a baby carriage, which led to my first time really being pursued on trail by someone who had shortcutted. I can still remember Yupper telling me, which I've told a lot of hares that I've trained now, never take a pack for granted. And I took it for granted that day, putting in a little section for the family that got me chased. And
You weren't chased by a buggy.
negative. I was doing both sections towards the end of the trail, and there's a big ditch. And when I got to that ditch, I'm like, okay, the family aren't going to be able to get through this section. So I took the trail running to my left. I knew I had to get up to a road. So I got the easy trail, the family trail done first. Then I ran a different route back down to that same spot, but to the ditch. And when I got to this ditch, and it was probably 15 feet deep and about 15 yards wide. So it was a fairly nice ditch. And when I get to the ditch, the pack was right on the other side. Some that had shortcutted about a mile, 3/4 of a mile loop that was on the other side of a road earlier. I'm notorious for putting in loops. And they found where the loop crossed over itself. So they were like right there. And I can remember like just taking off, and the flower was almost flying into the air, but I got away. Had a high school kid that was a cross country runner chasing me down, but I got done. But
What was the head start process?
we would get 12 minutes. And at 12 minutes, I'm trying to think, the walkers would start. And then at 15, the runners would start. I think it was 10 and 12. I can't remember exactly, but it was something along those lines. Walkers would get about a 2 to 3 minute head start on the runners.
When you were doing this with a running hash, a week, and then the family group, were the circles different? Did you have to change the songs or the level of alcohol and drinks? How were they different?
Because we were patterned after Okinawa, I can only remember one hash song we ever did. It was just one down song. So there weren't any songs. Nobody knew any songs. Now they've all been published and everything, but then we knew one. So it wasn't any different as far as circles went, except that we had the alcohol. We would still do pouring. We'd have little kids. I had my daughters. They were there. And I don't think anybody poured in them because they were only like maybe 5 and 7 at the time. But the other thing that we had was that you had to have a full drink and you had to finish it. They say, what doesn't go in you goes on you. You were held to it there. I remember one young lady pouring the Hawaiian punch on herself, and mom wasn't happy.
Great. Okay, there you went to Carolina Trash. By the time you left there, did you know about other hashing yet? How was your transition to Carolina Trash and their traditions?
Myself and one other hasher, after Yupper had left, this guy and myself did a lot of trails together as far as
Who's that?
Let's see, it was Foreskin. Him and I went over to do a visit at Carolina Trash. That was eye-opening. All the songs, I was like, wow, this is fun. And they were doing all kinds of stuff, hash formals and sitting on the ice, some cool stuff. So I started getting some other people to go along. I started going to their hashes a lot. I started going over and herring trails for them. They really done me a good one. Normally it takes 40, 50 trails or hashes for you to get bib there. Everybody knows about the Carolina bib.
Not everybody knows about it. Tell us about that too.
I'm not sure how you would call it, but an award for becoming an official member of Carolina Trash is they have a black bib that is custom made, and it will have CT Carolina Trash Hash House Harriers on it. It has hash name on it. And big ceremony and everything when they give that to you. And you never know when you're going to get it. Some people never get it. And the ceremony that they have when they give it is there's lots of stories out there, and they're probably all true, but they do a lot of nasty stuff to the bib before they give it to you. And then when they give it to you, it's really raunchy and bad.
Could you tell what happened to your bib before you got it?
It had been soaked in something. They put it like in a can or a jar or something, and it gets to really fester. They put it in the heat. It will gag you. It's really bad. Then they bring it out and put it on you. I was only hashing with them for a couple months. I think I had about 12 trails myself, and Black, who was another hasher, used to go with me all the time. They actually bibbed us both. We were really surprised. And that was a lot of fun.
Who were the main characters there that you first met and were there through that period?
Let's see. The one name I remember that I can really remember was Teeth the Swamp and Two Dogs. Two Dogs was at Fort Bragg. I actually called him one time. I was chasing through a swamp, and unbeknownst to me, I went right by him. He was in the swamp, breathing through a reed.
Oh my God.
Well, I remember getting up onto some kind of a blowdown or something in the swamp. The water was up toward chest. All the crap on top of the swamp was undisturbed. I'm like, okay, he didn't come through here, and I'm getting up to try to figure out, okay, did I miss something? And when I'm up on there, up he comes out of the swamp. It was so cool. And he goes like this. And he gets me to hear the rest of the trail. I'm like, I don't know where we're at. We're in the middle of a freaking swamp. I have no idea. He said, just go over there, get on the other side. There's a bag of flour over there, run out the power line to the road and turn left. You'll know where you're at. By the time I found the bag on the other side of all this really heavy greenbrier stuff, the pack was like right there. And the only thing that saved me from getting caught from them was all that greenbrier stuff. I was able to scamper away. That was one of my more fun stories that I've had as far as chasing down somebody, catching them in the swamp, and them actually breathing through a reed while I went within a foot of them.
That's great. Where'd you go next after Lejeune?
Still at Lejeune, I also was with the Crystal Coast hash. So we got that one going. So we were doing trails 4 times a week. They were doing Tuesdays and Saturdays. So we got that hash going. Then I went up while on temporary duty to Quantico and got in the steering committee for starting Over the Hump. So I was hashing with them. Then I did some stuff with them, all those hashes. So I was doing 4 different hashes at the same time. Then eventually retired in 94 and came to Harrisburg. The closest hash in Harrisburg was Redding. I went to a few Redding hashers, but it just wasn't the same vibe that I liked and everything. So I didn't hash with them a whole lot. There was no hash in Harrisburg, but then unbeknownst to me, somebody did get one started, and he had hashed in Hawaii, if I remember right. It was just by chance. I was wearing this hat, and I was at a thing at the boys club. It was called Day of Care. I was volunteering time to do work. And this guy looked at me and he said, "You a hasher?" I'm like, "Yeah." He says, "Why haven't you been out to hash with us?" I'm like, "Who are you?" He tells me about the Harrisburg hash.
Who was that?
I'm thinking that it'd be called Coney. I'm pretty sure it was him because we didn't have a lot of tall people in it back, and this is 20 years ago. So we didn't have a lot of tall people, and he was pretty tall. I'm pretty sure.
By the way, that's 30 years ago.
30 years ago. Yeah, 30 years ago. So yeah, so I'm pretty sure it was him because I only seen him for about 5 minutes. We just happened to cross paths. So he told me that they had a trail coming up and it happened to be their first anniversary. I'm like, I'm going to go. I showed up and did my first trail with them, with the Harrisburg Hershey hash. And 500 some trails later, I'm not hashing with them a whole lot now because I started another hash here at Harrisburg with Splinter, and I do more hashing with them now. But did a lot of trails with H5, a lot of herring, still working on getting up to almost 200 hairs with them. And it's still going strong.
One interesting thing about this story is you've been with a couple clubs that hash twice a week. Now, reality of today's hashing is there's a lot of clubs don't exist anymore. Some I've had to go to once every 2 weeks. It's less. Going twice a week and being in two clubs there, that was a function of the time. It was right in that heyday from the 80s through the 90s. Hashing was just going crazy. Clubs were starting everywhere, not just in the traditional starting points. Tell me about the club that you started in Harrisburg, and then we'll go back to your start with H5. I hashed with Reading about 91, and I got back there earlier in 88, and I tried to start a hash in Harrisburg, and to my great regret, I failed because I would love to say I was the founder of Harrisburg Hershey, which is a great club, but unfortunately I was incompetent and I failed to get it started, even though there was a Harrisburg Roadrunner Club, and I kept lobbying those guys and putting up signs. So anyway, what about the splinter group? Sometimes splinter groups happen for odd reasons. Sometimes they happen because you want another hash or a different schedule. What was the club you started there?
Prior to the one that I'm running with right now, I started another one up in Selinsgrove. I was working for the American Diabetes Association and putting on a bike tour. And one of my team captains from the Selinsgrove area, in conversation, I told him about the hash, and he was really captivated by it. We talked for almost a year on trying to do it. I think it was like 2017, 16 or 17. It might have been a little bit earlier than that. We actually said, okay, we're going to do it. We had our first trail up there. Had a fairly good group of his friends that showed up. They all loved it. We had that hash going for a couple of years. They didn't do full moon hashes. They did new moon hashes. So it's really dark. We hit a pretty good sizable area that we hashed in up there. We had some people that had hashed, I think, Guam. They came back and he was pretty versatile in songs, so that helped us out. It went for about 4 years. I was even trying to get them to host PA Interhash. Then things just fell apart. It just went away. But I still stay in contact with several of them up there, and there's talk of trying to bring it back again. But along the way, I started Keystone. And Keystone was going for, about maybe a year. And then we put it aside. What led to that was there was this, I don't know, I'd been the GM of Harrisburg for about 10 years. Getting real stale a little bit, but there was just some drama and things that were going on within the hash that I would refer to as unhasher-like behavior. And I'm like, it's time for a change. I thought the best thing for me to do was to step down. I decided, hey, let's have a hash with no drama. So I started Keystone. It went for about a year, and everything seemed to calm down, and got back to hashing with H5 again, and everything was good and strong. Stinko was going strong. Then a couple of the guys in the hash decided, hey, let's get Keystone going again. So we got Keystone going again because it is really about the trail, about the running. Hard trails, lots of elevation. And we still walk. There's hard stuff up here to go. We're not getting any younger. So you walk from time to time, but for the most part, we're about trail. And we only hash once a month on a Sunday. And our closing song is Easy Like Sunday Morning. And there's ELSM. And there's ELSM.
Oh, okay.
And
I was born in Pennsylvania, so I know, not everybody might know, Pennsylvania is the Keystone State. Because it's one of the original 13, they said Keystone, holding it all together. It's a Pennsylvania reference there. As you formed all these clubs over the years, how did the traditions vary or evolve from your Okinawa days? And how important were those traditions to you when you started a hash?
The most important tradition is live. We do live trails. I'm not motivated when I'm on a dead hair trail. To me, it's about the chase. It's about the game, playing the game, outthinking the hare or being the hare, which I do most, and then trying to outthink the pack and seeing how much I can get away with. So that's the biggest tradition. age 5 wasn't really doing live trails. And when I stepped into the group, I started doing live trails. And before long, that became the norm. We do live trails. Keystone does live trails. Sealands Grove does live trails. So that's the biggest thing. Markings are pretty much the same. We use flour. Put colored chalk in the flour during the wintertime. And all that stuff is the same. Circle, your traditional down songs. Yeah, it's all pretty much the same. The one thing that we don't do, now Keystone, we don't keep any numbers. So we're just here for the trail and to drink some beer, but we don't put anything on numbers. So we don't care how many trails you've done. There's no stats. There's nothing. The one thing I wanted to do at Harrisburg was the headband thing. I really like the headbands. To me, wearing the headbands, people want to get that headband. You want to get your next headband. It's just as simple as it is. People want to get that next headband. And so it gets people out. But Harrisburg Hershey decided to do patches. Well, nobody wears clothes except to big events and things that has patches on them. You'll see somebody with a happy coat with 10,000 patches on it. Whereas the headband, it showed something. It has a number on it. I've been doing this for 500 runs or 1,000 runs or what have you. That was something I wanted to do, but I just didn't get the backing on it. Or I think that a lot of people that fizzled away might have stuck around more. But it was a big thing in Okinawa, because the one thing they did in Okinawa, which is something we didn't talk about earlier, was they would go to local races. There's races all the time on Okinawa. And there would always be a representative from the hash. The ONSEC normally would be at these races. If you showed up to do the race and had your headband and you signed in, you got credit for a hat.
Oh, yeah.
We used that at the Onzo County hash down in Jacksonville at Camp Ejeune. And one thing that really helped us grow, because we would show up at local races, 5Ks, 8Ks, and the hashers were taking all the medals and taking all the trophies. And before long, we actually took over the Roadrunners Club, the Jacksonville Roadrunners Club, because everybody was hashers.
Yeah.
So the headband really helped us grow. And so, yeah, that was a tradition that I really liked. And so I have a box of all my headbands. You'll go to see Okinawans and they do things where they get them all sewn together and stuff. But yeah, that was a big deal.
Yeah. In the late 80s or 90s, Cairo Hash did every 25 would get a numbered T-shirt. And then after you got over 100, it'd be every 50. And then they had all kind of gifts, mugs and plates and cartouches and everything. And it is a motivation for people. Yeah. They watch their count and plan their numerical milestone run as a thing. It's cool. Yeah. Let me ask you about how then hashing changed you as a runner.
Like I said earlier, I really wasn't into running. I ran because of being a Marine. You have to run, but it was boring to me. So getting into the hashing, I found that not to be boring. Then wanting to get the next headband, I started going to races. And it was maybe my second race in Okinawa. We were running a 5K and on a kind of hilly course. And never in my career, except maybe in boot camp, had I broke 18 minutes for a 3-mile run, because we would do a 3-mile run. And I do this 5K, which is more than 3 miles, and I broke 18 minutes. I'm like, wow, this hashing is doing something. I had entered a 10K and I had a goal and I met the goal. And because I'm doing it with the hashers, I found fun in doing and going to races. Then there was a hasher over there. Her hash name was Speedy's sister from Phoenix. Her and I became friends, and she was pretty fast, pretty much the fastest woman in Okinawa. She did a lot of road racing. But anyway, she got me interested in doing a marathon. And I wasn't sure about that. But then we went on to do a hashathon with the Motor T hash. So that gave me the confidence to say, hey, maybe I can do a marathon. And so when I came,
The hashathon means different things to different people. It's usually a multi-run, multi-day, sometimes hash every day for a week, different versions. What was the hashathon there?
4 at least 6-mile hashes done consecutively in one day,
All live.
all live. Yep. And completing a hashathon, I'm like, hey, I just ran 20 some miles today. And in one of those hashes, I was carrying a bag of flour and really gruesome, a lot of shiggy, just going out on a nice paved course and running. It was pretty hard. So I'm like, hey, all I got to do is pace myself and train and I can do it. When I rotated back to the States, I had to go in mind that, okay, I'm going to do a marathon. I signed up and I did my first marathon in 1989, Marine Corps Marathon, and didn't have fun. I cramped so bad, so much pain. And I said, I'm never doing that again. I drove up here to see my family after the marathon. And before I got from Washington to Harrisburg, I changed my mind that I'm going to do it right. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it right. So I started training, doing more research, not wearing a cotton shirt for a marathon in October or beginning November because I had hypothermia, and training slower. I just did my homework. And by 1990, I was able to go from a 3:54 marathon to a 3:03 marathon. And I'm doing a lot of road racing along the way. And always with the hashers, we always had a group that would go. We'd go to different places in North Carolina as a group and show up. Everybody knew who we were. So it made running fun, even though it was road racing, but it made it fun. Be out there doing it rather than just going out and doing a run by yourself.
Let's do a visual aid here. Oh, yeah.
You can see the guy's on his knees
Yeah.
and he's being poured over with a
I
keg.
can't tell that's a guy. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah.
That's just an example of someone on their knees getting the empty cooler poured on him at the end when he does his down.
Yeah. It looks like the kids enjoy that part of the ceremony.
Yeah. And then here's a picture. That's Yupper, Vietnam vet. He's the one that I done probably close to 200 hairs with between Okinawa and down in Camp Lejeune. And him and we still keep in touch. He's in the process of moving from up near the border of Toronto, Canada, moving down to South Carolina. But we still stay in touch. We did our first marathons together. He used to be very fit, but right now has had some accidents and stuff. But you can see in that picture, the hat's right there and the headbands. We always wore headbands around her neck. That was my blue headband there. So that would have been for that particular hash. I think that was the blue one was 75. The picture of Yupper and I is from May 13th, 1990.
Yeah.
I want to find out what's going on and see how he's doing. The other person we want to talk to is Grease Monkey.
Yeah. I don't know how to reach him. Can you reach him?
He mentored me as far as hashing goes. So the Grease Monkey stories, the tricks and stuff, but his would all pretty much be related to Okinawa and then over the hump. He's not a traveler. He's strictly been around military type hashing.
Yeah. It'd be great to talk to him. The people who hashed in Okinawa in that era know him, and same with Over the Hump.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. I'm hoping to get down and see Grease Monkey here pretty soon. Now the coaching is done, I want to make a road trip down and do a hash.
His name's come up before. Other people have mentioned Grease Monkey.
Yes, he was in Okinawa for 3 years, was a joint master over there, and awesome runner.
Let's go a little bit away from hashing then. How did that change your personal life and your involvement in running and high school athletics and stuff like that?
Oh, gosh. It's who I am. Being in the Marine Corps, I had no idea what I was going to do when I got out, but the running and the notoriety that I got in the Marine Corps for my running, being on the Marine Corps marathon team and being in the papers down in Camp Lejeune, that led to me getting jobs in the Marine Corps to be the director of the Water Survival School because Colonel James at MCSSS wanted somebody, he's seen me, that's the kind of person we want at the Water Survival School. That water survival training and everything led to stuff after I got out of the Marine Corps. So what had changed was getting back here. And initially, there was nothing. It was, I got out, asked once in a while with Reading, but I was just got a job, no big deal. Everything the same. But then when I got back involved with hashing, that changed everything. It led to me meeting my wife, us having a son who is a runner now at Penn State. His running led to me becoming a coach because I was teaching him what I knew. I coached him from it when he was about 9, 10 years old. From the day he stepped on cross-country course to at high school, he was the number one runner. And so that opened doors for me as far as my coaching goes, was really through my son. And he hashed with us. And like I said, it led to me meeting my wife.
Where did you meet her?
Actually, right here. But we first met at this house. We had the same house that we met in. We were doing a trail, and we got the local news to come out and cover it. And we finished.
Why did you get the local news to cover a trail?
I'm not sure whose idea it was, but we got ABC 27 to come out. They sent a couple guys with cameras, big cameras. I've still got a video somewhere of the whole thing. They were putting a spotlight on it. Hey, look at what people were doing for fun. They actually ran the segment on New Year's Eve that year. We actually did it around Thanksgiving. But the trail was an A to B trail. We started on the other side of the mountain from where I live. And my wife attended that trail. She only did the short trail, the Walker's Trail, and then she left. And I never even talked to her that day. Then there was a big party here at the house. The guy that owned the house, big group of friends. We had a New Year's Eve party here. That video was on television. We still hadn't talked. But she was living here in this house at the time, rooming, when she was going to PA school. They were doing their rotations, and so she had a place to stay here for, I guess it was about 2 months or so. So then in February, a joint friend of ours who's also a hasher, her hash name is Community Chess. She passed away several years ago, but she invited me to a Valentine's Day dinner at this house of all singles. My wife, then the person I didn't know, she was the host. And it was at that party that her and I actually met and been together ever since.
What's her hash name?
Purple Cooter.
You had roles in hash mismanagement of almost all these clubs. Did Purple Cooter do that? What was her take on hashing?
She seemed to be into it like right away. She's more into hiking. She's certainly trying to hike segments of the Appalachian Trail all the time. She's done a lot of it. So she likes being outdoors. She likes the people that we hashed with. A lot of those people were friends beforehand. She likes the social aspects of it. She loves traveling. She's a big traveler. So we've been all over the country, been to Europe and Asia and stuff, doing trails together. So she really likes that part of it. It's like how we do our vacations.
You're not a technophile, but at some point you did bump into the internet. We used to have hashing directories printed of how to find the clubs. When did it explode for you, this traveling around to doing trails as part of your vacations or planning your travel around hashing?
I think where it really kicked off, I went to a regular weekend, and this was before I knew my wife, in Pittsburgh for their annual, I think it was 98. And got to meet people from, I'm like, man, there's hashes in Boston and Pittsburgh and all these places. And I still wasn't up on the internet yet. I finally got the web TV thing, and that kind of got me connected a little bit. The following year, the wife and I were together by that point, and we went to Pittsburgh Interhash.
The Inter-Americas, yeah.
Yeah, the Inter-Americas hash at Pittsburgh. And that really got it rolled. Once we've seen that, okay, we got these interhashes. I think I attended all the interhashes after that, with the exception of one. I was set to go and then couldn't go. I think the one that was in Panama, I think it was. So
That was a tough one to miss. There was a small group. We're all in the same hotel, and everybody stayed in the pool the whole weekend. Yeah, it was great. It's interesting. The guy who is in charge of Panama is Robbie, and he's an ultra runner. He does the 100-milers and everything. You'd love to set trail with him. And you set trail at some of these Inter-Americas, right? You love setting trail.
yeah, I set up in Toronto. I helped with one of their trails. Austin, I actually flew down to Austin like in June, spent a couple of days down there to research a trail. Then all the PA interhashes, I've heard all those. So yeah, I like getting out and finding new stuff and coming up with new things to do.
I just saw you at the Rumson Co-Motion weekend in New Jersey, and you didn't have to set trail there, but how do you like running in these different places? Sometimes you're visiting people and sometimes they're dead trails. Sometimes they're on pavement. Sometimes they're short. How do you appreciate now with this long view of hashing that hashing is different everywhere? And it's not always just the way you started and just the way you'd run it. How does all that fit with you?
You've got to be able to adapt. With having artificial knees, I don't do well running on road. So if I get out to a hard surface, I'll barely run, barely jog. I'll usually walk it. Fortunately, if I know a trail is going to have a lot of road on it, I usually skip it. Fortunately, we don't do that in Keystone. We'll still have some because it's almost impossible to get out there and not have some. But when I travel, hey, when you go to a world hash or almost anywhere, it's going to be a dead trip. So you take the good with the bad. I still got to put in my mind, the hair's ahead of me. I try to motivate myself that way. So when I get to a beer check, I'll stop, get a drink. I'm on to go. I'm not one to socialize at beer checks. I get torn up a lot about that. I was like, why don't you stop? And I'm like, hey, I socialize before trail. I socialize after trail. But when I'm on trail, I'm doing trail. At my age, I can't stop and let my heart come down and go back up again and let the body cool down and then try to get it going again. It's too hard. So I got to keep going. I'll get a drink. Boom, I'm going. Especially around here where we got live hares. I'm going out to try to catch a hare. That's what it's all about to me. It's what motivates me.
That's great. You've done a lot for the hash. You're always there. You've started a lot of clubs. You hear constantly, and you've done a lot and weathered the changes and traveled, been a big part of it. It's great to spend time talking about you. What about your coaching? Maybe this isn't so relevant in this thing, but as a Marine, the leadership you learned there, and hashing mismanagement, which is all types of people with it's an official title with unofficial power. You get what you can, and coaching and working with your son and others. How's that all informed? Were there things you learned from hashing that you think affected your career or life or helped in any way?
I don't know, maybe on the social side of it, that there's all kinds of people are all different. They all have different motivations. Like me, my motivation is to be out there in the front and going after the hare. Other people, that's not their motivation. And it's the same thing with the athletes I coach. I have athletes that want to do great. They set goals. I have athletes that are there for the social side of it. And I don't identify with that part. I'm coming to grips with it a little bit more, but I'm used to with having my son, who's a Division I athlete, his mentality, his drive, his goal setting, how hard he works. And when I'm around some high school athletes that won't do anything during the summer, they won't do anything during the weekend, they won't go lift. That's okay. They're just showing up because it's something to do. And I'm fine with that because, hey, they could just be sitting at home on the couch, watching television or playing a game or something like that. So I still give them props for being out there, especially the ones that do it when we have our indoor season. We're out there all winter running. We're the only team in the high school that is training outside during the wintertime. So I give them props for that. But having my Marine Corps mentality and what I try to instill in my son, I'm still like, hey, if I'm going to be out there and I'm putting in the time, I'm going to try to get everything I can out of it. I'm always going to try to improve, and I'm not going to do just the minimum. I'm going to do all I can. So it's different, the two different mentalities of the kids that you work with.
Yeah.
Some are good, some are bad, some have talent, some don't. But you get just as jazzed up from an athlete that will finish at the back, but they have that drive and they're trying to improve. And there's things that I'm correcting on their running. And when I see them do it, I get emotional about it. It's really big to me. And that's why I still do it. Because if I can just help one of them, that's my payoff.
Well, that's good. You're contributing not only friggin' hashes, but helping young kids and staying involved. Good for you for all this. Anything else you wanted to get in here? Mention any events, people, or stories we missed?
There's neat things that we do that we've done here in Harrisburg, whether it be our mystery hashes. I don't know how many places do those. I think that's a really fun thing to do, but we do mystery hashes. We haven't done one in a while.
How's that work?
Hares will go out. Nobody knows where they're doing this at. We've done them down in Maryland. We've gone up to Centralia. We've gone up to Pottsville. The very first one we did in Pottsville, where we met at a location. Nobody knew where we were going. We put them in vehicles. That particular day was only maybe about 20 of us. We put them in pickup trucks. We drove to Pottsville, parked in a parking garage, and we did a trail that had a beer check at Yingling, and the people got a brewery tour. Then we finished at the Yingling Mansion, which was really fun. We took people up to Centralia, where the coal fires are on the ground. That was
all the Pennsylvania highlights, breweries, World War II towns, and burning under.
Yeah, it's cool. So we do those. We do our kick the keg runs after the Stinko weekend. The very first year that we did Stinko, as Stinko, we had a 3/4 keg of beer left. And I'm like, the hashers paid for it. Let's do a half. We'll keep the keg going and do a kick the keg run. And so the very first one, we put the keg in the back of my pickup truck. Purple Cooter drove the truck. And we did it in a little town called Lewisburg, where I actually lived when I was in high school. The one thing about it, it was totally unplanned. I started off with a bag of flour. They gave me a couple of minutes, no checks. I would just run along, and randomly, I would find a place to do a peer check. And so I seen this couple sitting in their yard, and I ran up to them. I'm like, hey, I've got a keg of beer coming and some people following after us. Can we stop here and drink some beer with y'all? And they were like, yeah. So we stopped and had one there. So then I took off again, and I'm running up along the Silver Lake over in Lewisberry, and I look to the left and I see a guy back his driveway. I'm like, hey, do you drink beer? And he turns around, he has a beer in his hand. And I'm like, hey, this is what we're doing. He said, yeah, come on in. So I took the trail into there. Again, no checks or anything. Everything's true trail. The most direct way to get to the beer. Pulled the truck in there, and we did another beer check. And then I can't finish here. So I went out and did another one. And I forget exactly where I did that one at, but I only went about a half mile. And then we came back and we finished at that guy's house, and we partied there till about 2:00 in the morning. It was great. And the kick the keg is still going on to this day. The week following Stinko, there's a kick the keg run. That was a lot of fun. In fact, on this mountain, I think the number 3 one, we just went straight up the mountain to the top, across the top, and finished down at one of our guys' sisters lived up there. Steep, steep driveway. I can still remember Slimmy from Nittany Valley. He was in the back of the truck. And as we pulled up, the tailgate was open, Slimmy and the keg off the back of the truck. So that was fun. Then the mystery runs, kick the keg runs, stuff like that. Just new twists.
That's cool.
Makes it fun.
All right. I want to ask you about one more thing. The Founders Club. Are you aware of that?
Not familiar with Founders Club.
Okay. I'll get Eiffel Tower and let you know. As a guy who started some hash clubs, there is a group They have hats and they get a founder's hat. They're numbered hats for people at Founders Club. So I'll let Eiffel Tower know to listen to this and get in touch with you, see if you want to be part of that.
I have heard of Eiffel Tower.
Yeah. Eiffel Tower out of New York. Yeah. He runs the Hash Founders Hash. Yeah. We'll get him to know that you started a club. Usually if he knows you started a club, he'll bring it up, but we'll get in touch about that. All right. Thanks for all your time, Bushrat. It's a good story. I hope to see you on trail again. It's been a long time since I've been in Harrisburg. I still have a little dumpy house I rent out in York, and it's been a longer time since I've been to PA Interhash, but hope to see you on trail soon.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, going back to Rumson 2 weeks ago at Commotion, while on the bus, I was drafted to be the hare for Commotion next year. Bushrat may be herring a trail at Commotion next year.
All right. Will it be live?
It will be live.
Wow. Okay. I like some of your stories. If you want, I have a feeling we'll be in the chest deep swamps at some point.
It's got to be live.
Yeah. All right.
It's not going to be Memorex.
Thanks for everything you've done for hashing, and good talking to you on.
On? Yeah. Been a pleasure.
To close the circle, here's the Hash Anthem sung by Mother Hash.
Swing low, sweet child.